All right, everyone. Hey, welcome to the Buzz Studio, the Buzz, your global radio network. Now it's time for the World on Finance with Mr. Everett James. Now, keep in mind, you can catch Everett each and every Thursday right here every Wednesday on this network, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East. And welcome to the set, Mr. Everett
Thank you.
James. Hello, my friend.
Hello, thank you, and good morning.
Good morning. Good morning. And good afternoon to our friends out here on the East Coast. Got a quick question, Ev, and then I'll step aside. We're in a government shutdown. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. And how is that going to affect the economy?
The shutdown?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be a pretty devastating
Okay.
because, you got to remember that a lot of the contracts that have been already approved, that's going to affect folks who have contracts with the federal government. They're going to be on hold, and there's going to be a lot of bills that have not been paid during the
Mm,
shutdown. It's going to, and because of the fact that they are being not going to be paying on time, there's going to be additional interest charge, and that's going to overall increase the total indebtedness.
mm. Wow, 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 wow.
It's
Okay.
devastating.
Yes, absolutely. Okay, Ev, I'm going to step aside and enjoy the show.
Yes, thank you so much. And what we'll try to do is to just bring the listeners up to date on this shutdown, which, believe or not, has already started. In addition, we're going to be looking at the overall health costs that have skyrocketed in the country, and really that has a huge impact on the budget, of course. And that is, as we will see, the major sticking point in the government shutdown scenario that we are watching. Is health care insurance, and how does that get paid? And who receives the benefits? Wow. Okay. So, folks, regarding the general program, the management and this programmer urge you to take part, to participate. And we are looking for your comments. We're looking especially for your questions, your tax questions. And believe it or not, if the questions are put forth, this broadcaster will make every effort to answer the question in the following week's program. If we have any comments, please use this telephone number and email to follow. Phone number for Everett James is 951-522-9877. That's 951-522-9877. And for those who are more disposed to using the internet, evjtax1 at gmail.com. Don't spell out the one, just the numeral, evjtax1 at gmail.com. And there will be some benefits for those of you who take part and who respond to this request for comments. Okay, now, what to know about the government shutdown, and we will try to just provide you with the essentials because believe me, it is filling up literally volumes of books. The federal government has already begun to shut down the government, which they already initiated this last night, and that's because last night, being the 30th of September, the end of the fiscal year. So we're in the new fiscal year now. Welcome, folks, to fiscal year 26. Well, the government took the choice to shut down after Democrats and Republicans failed to come to an agreement to extend that government funding ahead of today, October 1, 2025, and that is the deadline. You've already heard as many as 750,000 or three-quarters of a million government workers could be furloughed. That's just according to the CBO, the abbreviation, the Congressional Budget Office. And, they will not be paid until Congress appropriates funding and the shutdown ends. And, folks, we are now approaching what was it, the Thanksgiving, Christmas, holiday. Wow. Workers deemed to be essential, however, will stay on the job, although, they will not be paid, and actually, until Congress reaches a funding deal. Republicans and Democrats are each, of course, pointing the finger at each other. A measure that got passed in the House would have extended funding for several weeks, but that did not garner enough votes this yesterday in the Senate. And unfortunately, the Democrat votes are needed for passage. Most Democrats have said they will only back the bill if Republicans agree to extend expiring health insurance tax credits. And they've already put forth a bill of their own. The nub of the problem is the subsidies, healthcare subsidies that the Democratic side of the aisle is demanding to be reinstated. Now, one of the major subsidies is the Obama, as they call it, the Obamacare or the Affordable Care Act, ACA. They have really generous subsidies to help so many folks, be able to pay the premiums on health insurance, and that subsidy has been in operation for several years now, since the Obamacare Act, or what they call the Affordable Care Act, has been in existence. But unfortunately, on the Democratic side of the aisle, they did agree to an expiration of those subsidies, and that expiration had been agreed to as being, the end of this year, 2025. Well, now you might say, the other side of the aisle, from the Republicans, are demanding that those subsidies be reinstated, even though they had agreed to the expiration as of the end of this year. So, unfortunately, the 60 votes are needed to advance any kind of a measure, in the Senate, and one side of the aisle is demanding that the health insurance tax credits be reinstated. The Senate is also now voting on whether to invoke closure on the House passed measure to fund the government until November 21st. However, that vote also needs 60 votes to succeed, and they don't have those 60 votes at the current time, as of last night. So the Senate is now voting on a Democratic continuing resolution that would fund the government until October 31st and extend the health care tax credits their main demand in the funding fight. As I mentioned, it failed to reach that 60 vote threshold in the upper chamber last September 19th, and again, basically last night, just hours before the deadline. The measures put forth thus far, and to make it short and simple, have not met any of the required number of votes for passage. So, in fact, the measure I'm just mentioning earlier has failed twice, and it's again expected to fall short for any additional votes. There is a prediction that there's going to be roughly 100,000 federal workers who will be who are going to who have accepted a deferred resignation offer. And that came earlier this year, and they have officially left the workforce. So we've already lost 100,000 federal workers already. What they call the Fork in the Road Initiative. It's called the Fork in the Road Initiative, folks. That offers, and that was the government's offer to federal workers, the opportunity to resign their positions but keep their full pay and benefits until September 30th. Well, more than 150,000 employees accepted that buyout offer, but that was far fewer than the more than 200,000 that the Trump administration hoped would leave their position. The head of the Office of Personnel Management told NBC4 that roughly 100,000 workers would leave their jobs as of yesterday, with the remainder ending their employment with the federal government at the end of the year. So, just as an aside, with some of the political shenanigans, really being participated in by both sides of the aisle. But news has come out that the current administration has frozen $18 billion in infrastructure funding to a particular state. Guess what state that is? New York, home of Jeffries and Schumer. The Russ Vought, Vought, who's head of the White House Office of Management and Budget, OMB as they abbreviate it. Russ Vought announced on the internet that Trump is freezing, or the administration is freezing, roughly $18 billion in New York City infrastructure projects, launching the first salvo of the shutdown to target the home state of Senator Chuck Schumer and Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the Democratic leader in the House. Just about said that the funds would be put on hold to ensure funding is not flowing based on unconstitutional, he used to call it DEI principles, referring to diversity, equity, and inclusion policies. And the administration has already targeted those on a range of different fronts. It was reported that the Department of Transportation would be releasing more details about the freezing soon. The monthly job numbers, have been a sore point. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, by the way, are suspending their operations during the shutdown, and certainly, you can understand why economic data that are scheduled to be released during that lapse are not going to be released, and the BLS, the Bureau of Labor Statistics, as I mentioned, are cutting out their operations during the shutdown, and it will also not be conducting surveys for the next month's report. all active data collection activities for the BLS surveys will cease. The Bureau of Labor Statistics will not be updated with new content or restored in the event of a technical failure during the lapse. The jobs report is, really pretty closely watched by investors and by the interest rate, who are watching the interest rates that are set by the Federal Reserve. Last month, it signaled it was monitoring the Labor Department for signs of weakness as hiring slowed up in the last 2 months. Now, in August, employers added 22,000 jobs. That's well short of the 80,000 jobs economists had expected. So, anyway, the notice has been sent to the OMB, Office of Management Statistics. They have sent a memo to federal agencies telling them to consider reduction in force notices or layoffs for federal employees in discretionary programs. Wow, it would not be a safe place to be in now. If you're a federal employee, you'd be in one of those discretionary programs. So he did say, President Trump did say, we'll be laying off lots of folks, and that will be lots of folks from the other side of the aisle. The major sticking point, folks, after foraging through all of these claims from both sides of the aisle, is that the major health subsidy program in the United States, let's face it, is Medicaid or Medi-Cal if it's in California, or in other states. Some other states have a different name for Medicaid, but it's the same thing. But the claim that has been substantiated, basically, is that many of the democratically run states have been and are still seeking to allow undocumented immigrants access to health care benefits. And that is a major sticking point. The health care premiums for the Affordable Care Act and all of the subsidies that have been approved, that the states and every one of them have gone around the bushes and manipulated their budgets in order to cover folks who legally are not entitled to those benefits. So the spokesperson, Chuck Schumer, said, claimed that, look, they are lying. You know why? He said they don't want people to know the truth about healthcare and how they're decimated. Now, as part of this battle, I am going to just bring up and share with you some articles about the skyrocketing expenses in the healthcare industry, particularly those premiums that folks are going to be paying. The skyrocketing, the cost of the premiums have really exploded. And, in addition to that, the costs of prescription drugs have exploded. In addition to that, the amount of services that are being requested to be paid for under Medicaid, just the volume of healthcare being requested has skyrocketed as well. Not to mention the fact that our aging population, particularly those folks 85 years of age, that has increased at an alarming rate. Anyway, the government agencies in the current administration, they're pointing their finger Republicans are pointing their finger at the GOP, and of course the Democratic Party are pointing their finger, at the Republicans. This programmer will continue to provide um, some arguments from both sides of the aisle. The Social Security Agency Commissioner, who is Frank Bisignano, I'm not pronouncing that right, of course, but he appeared to blame Democrats for potential furloughs caused by a government shutdown. In the note, which was written before the shutdown, Bisignano wrote, if congressional Democrats maintain their current posture and refuse to pass a clean, continuing resolution to keep the government funded before midnight last night, the federal appropriated funding will lapse. So of course, the Housing and Urban Development is blaming the left and allowed a red banner across its website saying that the radical left in Congress shut down the government. Well, these messages could be violations of the Hatch Act. What's the Hatch Act? That prohibits civil service employees in the executive branch from engaging in political advocacy. And that I'm sure there's going to be charges of one side or the other, those in government as well as those outside of the formal government structure. But I'm sure there's going to be charges from both sides of the aisle during the shutdown. The Vice President Vance, has stated that they're going to try to make sure that as much of the people's government remains open or functional as possible. There's going to be some pain, he says, on the Affordable Care Act, the Obamacare Act tax credits that Democrats are seeking. Basically, as I mentioned, that had been agreed to by both sides to lapse as of the end of this year. But now we're seeing one side of the aisle demanding that it be reinstated. Well, those subsidies, while they are important, many of them, most of them are important. They really don't expire until next year. So the idea that you have to shut down the government in early October in the previous year over subsidies that don't expire for many months is somewhat questionable. Vice President Vance also said the administration wants to have the conversation on healthcare, but what you don't do is to hold the economy hostage and shut down the government because we're not giving you everything that you want. Well, what we've learned through these cycles of government shutdowns is that they never work. They cause a lot of damage. We should take that into account. So, folks, let's take a look at some of the real issues regarding these health insurance and subsidies. Now, let me share with you an article from the Southern California News Group dated September 14th, just shall we say about 2 weeks ago, by Mary Claire Jalonik and Amanda Seltz from the Associated Press. Well, millions of Americans could face higher insurance rates. Enrollment in the ACA, the Affordable Care Act plans, enrollment has surged to a record 24 million people, in large part due to the billions of dollars in subsidies that have lowered costs for many people. The expanded subsidies allowed some lower income enrollees to access health plans with no premiums. Wow. And limited the amount higher earners pay for premiums to 8.5% of their income. So again, let me just mention some of those allowances that have been allowed in the Affordable Care Act. They allowed some lower income folks with to have the plan with no premiums, and limited the amount of what the higher earning people pay to 8.5% of their income. Ooh. Of course, that expanded eligibility for middle class earners, but wow, that allowed folks who, in many people's mind, clearly should not even be enrolled, at all, particularly the folks who are in a higher income bracket. But to allow them into the Affordable Care Act with all of those subsidies, is that fair to the rest of the taxpaying public? Wow. The With expiration, of the Affordable Care Act, really just a few months away. Actually, it's and that is the end of this year. Some of the people already have gotten notices that their premiums for 2026. Ooh, the monthly fee paid for health insurance coverage, they're poised to increase next year. Insurers have already sent out notices in nearly every state, with some proposing premium increases, folks, of as much as 50%. 50%. So lawmakers are facing pressure to act from some of the country's biggest industries, including the insurers that cover people on the marketplace, and then hospital executives who say they're already going to be squeezed by the Medicaid cuts in the Trump's big beautiful tax bill that just got paid. This last it just got Trump passed rather this last July. So the companies have said and made clear that they're going to need to raise premiums without the subsidies, because the healthier and younger people are more likely to opt out of coverage when it gets more expensive. That's going to leave insurers to cover the cost of older and more sick and sicker patients. Now, on Capitol Hill, the issue over these subsidies have, of course, become entangled in a larger fight over government funding. And as we see, it has reached a boiling point here now, where where the leader of the House and Democratic leader of the House and the House minority leader, they've both Democrats have said Democrats will not vote to keep the government open unless an extension of the health care tax credits is part of the deal. Well, Republicans have said they want to take more time to look at it, but they're definitely definitely opposed to extending those subsidies or even increasing them. The Republican leaders are looking at a potential stopgap bill that would keep the government open for a few weeks more. But the reality is that that stopgap bill probably will not include an extension of the subsidies that the Democrats are demanding. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Thune, Republican from South Dakota, has said that he wants to see a proposal from Democrats on how to extend the subsidies since they're pushing the issue. Thune, the majority leader, has ruled out quick action He has said that a short-term spending measure to fund the government for several weeks while the government finishes this budget bill is not likely to include any extension of the benefits. So in recent days, about 15 Republicans in competitive political districts did introduce legislation to extend the tax credits for 1 year. Well, several Senate Republicans also said they'd favor that extension. Missouri Senator Josh Hawley said that if Congress doesn't act, some premiums will skyrocket and not by just a little bit. We're looking at massive increases in the health insurance premiums. Just folks will not be able to afford it. Texas Senator John Cornyn remarked that he thinks Congress should scale back the subsidies for the highest income people who receive them. I think that's going to be an absolute given. They're going to have to scale back those subsidies and limit them to folks who are in the direst of conditions economically. Just keep in mind that open enrollment begins. Isn't that something? 1 month from now, November 1st, and people are going to be seeing those sticker shock premiums. So timing, of course, is important, in these issues. Let me share another article that has puts forth the fact that the premiums are going to increase. They're predicted to increase for most people up to 18%. As I mentioned, the healthcare costs in the U.S. are experiencing all of those increases. That's facing not only individuals, but it's also facing employers who have health plans. So what are some of the factors in contributing to those increases? They certainly include rising prescription drug costs. It includes, number two, increased utilization of services, and of course, a huge aging population, particularly those who are 85 and older. I think they call them the super age group. And as I mentioned, insurers are seeking a median 18% premium increase for the Affordable Care Act marketplaces next year. Those premiums, are going up. The healthcare prices really have been increasing 2 to 4%, 2 to 3% in line with previous years. While the healthcare services use, just the amount of use of the healthcare services, that's increased by 6%. That's higher than in previous years. The cost of the healthcare is rising fast too. Then that includes, of course, the cost of the practitioners and technicians, and the cost of equipment. That overall healthcare costs are now being presented as representing 17% of the gross domestic product, and it's expected to increase to just under 20% by 2032. Wow, that's only what, 7 years, approximately 7 years off. Additional research is projecting that the health insurance is going to cost the average person 75% more next year. 75 more. I don't know how you how you really get around that. So the individual market insurance, market insurers, the private uh, insurers, that they're going to be increasing across all 50 states and the District of Columbia. So each spring and summer, health insurers submit increases in their rates, and they submit those to the rate to state regulators to justify the premiums just for the coming calendar year. So several factors drive up these premium changes, and usually the cost of the medical care. That's the price of health services and the amount, and just the amount of care itself has increased greatly. There are so that's going to drive up the cost of the insurance premiums. And what are some of the factors that private insurance cite as contributing to higher rates next year? Well, they include that there's a two or three of the major ones, but the two major ones, increases in the premium tax credits. They make coverage more affordable are expiring at the end of this year, as I mentioned, or at least that was the original agreement between the two sides of the aisle. And but that those increases in the tax credits that drives up out-of-pocket premium payments by over 75% on average. This is expected to cause healthier enrollees, basically, to drop out, and then that creates a sicker risk pool. Analysis from Peterson KFF Health Systems Tracker, it showed the expiration of the enhanced premium tax credits are raising proposed rates by an additional 4%. The second, major, one of the second major irritant that is driving up costs. Showed that tariffs could drive up the cost of some of the drugs, could drive up some of the cost of medical equipment and supplies. So some insurers report that the tariffs and the uncertainty around them are driving rate increases about 3% higher than they additionally would. But I have shared with you in the past the fact that yes, tariffs have been driving up the cost of the living, of course, and the healthcare premiums, but they haven't really been effective because there's a lot of areas of goods, a lot of different types of goods that are not requiring tariffs to be paid. And then there's a number of tariff-free goods that are still being imported into this country. So we have that as a real irritant and a real basic cause of the increase in the healthcare costs generally. So the cost of the healthcare services like hospitalizations, physician care, costs just the doctors, as well as prescription drugs, they go up every year, but they've just gone up more so in the past few years. And as I say, that's what's causing the huge budget impasse. Is that a lot of folks are not going to be able to afford these increased costs, premium costs, because of the increased charges to their premiums. So this issue If Congress does not take any action to renew the enhanced tax credits, those in the Affordable Care Act, these enhanced subsidies will expire as they have been agreed to before at the end of 2025. I would prognosticate that there's probably going to be, I would not be surprised, put it that way, if the enhanced premium tax credits, those enhanced tax credits will be reinstated before the end of the year. Because if they're not, the premiums for folks who are being subsidized will increase by over 75% starting in January of 2026. They, as I say, those insurers do expect a large share of folks who are enrolled to leave the market, and the pool, the risk pool are going to be sicker than average. So that means there's going to be going to be they're sicker, and it's going to cost more to treat them. Basically, the impact of the tariffs, however, is really only projected to be much smaller than what doomsday folks are publicizing. So another factor that creates uncertainty in the rate filing process is the implementation of the Trump ACA integrity rule. However, based on what insurers have filed thus far, this does not seem to be driving rate changes in either direction. Insurers and state regulators are still finalizing rates for the upcoming plan year. So these premium increases may change. So across the 100 Affordable Care Act marketplace insurers, across all of those insurers, premiums are rising by a median of 15% in 2026. So the folks, there's a lot of changes down the road, and some of our leaders in Congress have been warning the population, at least here in the Inland Empire in California. I'm sure this is probably going to be duplicated in other states in the country. But out here in the Inland Empire, an article from the Sun dated August 17th of 2025 by Jeff Horseman and Caitlin Schallhorn, Schallhorn. They are, predicting increases. Jeff Horseman has publicized an article about changes in Medi-Cal, how it threatens the care for many poor folks, including undocumented. But Jeff Horseman states that you could fill up Riverside and still have enough people to match Temecula's population with the number of Inland Empire residents who could lose health insurance coverage in the coming years. Upcoming Medi-Cal changes could leave at least 300,000 uninsured in Riverside and San Bernardino counties. Just recently, California's new budget cuts Medi-Cal for undocumented immigrants, while the recently enacted One Big Beautiful bill that was passed July 4th of this past year, that promises more Medi-Cal changes at the federal level. another 172,000 inland residents could lose their private insurance if Congress does not extend the enhanced premium tax credits, as have mentioned before. That could happen. Between Medi-Cal and the tax credits, the total number of people who could lose their coverage amounts to about 9% of the Inland Empire's roughly 5 million residents. The 4 in 10 of these residents are on Medi-Cal. About half of the 300,000 folks are expected to lose Medi-Cal. About half of those are, as you might guess, are undocumented immigrants. These are folks that the government made a decision about a year ago to actually add on to the Medi-Cal program. In 2024, California started offering Medi-Cal to low-income undocumented immigrants. So supporters of that move argue that it's the right thing to do and more cost-effective than treating this population in the emergency room when their health problems are more severe and expensive to deal with. But the new state budget scales back that effort amid a $12 billion shortfall. The other half include Medi-Cal recipients who expected to leave the program due to more stringent renewal requirements. Wow. And enrollees will have to go through a renewal process every 6 months instead of only once a year. And there's a lot more intensive paperwork for the eligibility program. The estimates cited by the writer of the article don't include Medi-Cal enrollees and other healthcare plans. So they're hoping not to cut anything, hoping just to slow the rate of increase. That's what state legislators out here are saying. Calvert, a local congressperson, has commented on the Medi-Cal's new work requirement. The folks who are going to be removed, and that's just based on legislation, are folks who don't want to work at least 20 hours a week. Okay, so if they're not disabled and they're capable of working or even volunteering, if they're not willing to do those things, they're going to be removed from the eligibility list. In any case, others take issue with the idea that Medi-Cal could be full of freeloaders. Well, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act certainly is going to affect the provider taxes funding hospitals. That whole healthcare system on the provider side of the house, which is the hospitals, emergency rooms, skilled nursing facilities, ambulance companies, all of them that really relied on those special provider taxes are just being phased way down. Less revenue from the provider taxes combined with cuts to Medi-Cal and state-directed hospital payments, that have been legislated in the One Big Beautiful tax bill. That's going to triple a whole bunch of problems. Enhanced premium tax credits come from COVID-19 relief legislation that was passed by Congress way back in 2021. The credits were meant to make private health insurance via the Affordable Care Act, also known as Obamacare. Those credits were meant to make those premiums more affordable. So some Congress people have said the credits actually point out a flaw in the Obamacare Act. Since the Affordable Care Act became law, healthcare costs have obviously increased, and what they did is they wound up shifting the increased cost over to the government. So the government is sort of kind of hidden the cost because of the credits that were issued. That's another major input from folks who are watching these Medicaid increases with alarm. And another article, which I hope to share with you before the conclusion of the program, an article that was dated January 1st, 2024, also from the Sun, which is a local Inland Empire newspaper. Can we afford health care for undocumented immigrants? Well, California is now providing the full scope of Medi-Cal benefits to undocumented immigrants. This full scope Medi-Cal program called Medicaid in other states, it covers primary and preventive care and other services. Now, previously, immigrants without legal status were eligible only for restricted scope Medi-Cal. What is restricted scope Medi-Cal? That's emergency room visits and pregnancy-related care. So at one time, that was all that was provided, the emergency room visits and the pregnancy-related care. But effective January 1st of last year, all California residents who met the income eligibility requirements, having low enough income, regardless of immigration status, became eligible for full scope Medi-Cal benefits in California. And then the policy was advanced piecemeal beginning in 2016. Full scope Medi-Cal benefits are granted to children under the age of 19, regardless of immigration status, as long as they met the other low income criteria. That was expanded again for ages 25 or through 25 in 2020. 2 years later, the policy was expanded again to include anyone age 50 or older. And as of January 1st of 2024, the missing group, adults aged 26 to 49, they became entitled to exactly the same full scope Medi-Cal benefits available now to low-income citizens who are residents. Wow. So back in early 24, there were approximately 14 million people, roughly one third of California's population, on Medi-Cal. And state officials reported last year that one of the later additions could add another 700,000 people to the rolls and will cost about $3 billion a year. In truth, no one has any idea how many people will be added to the rolls or what it will cost, primarily because during this time of a different administration, the borders were left open and people were welcomed in regardless of their credentials. And we had this huge influx of illegal aliens who populated the United States, and no records were kept on them or children who were made a part of the of this child labor population that were brought into the country without being officially accepted. So, Medi-Cal, of course, is an entitlement program. Everyone who meets the eligibility requirements is entitled to enroll it. and they're entitled to have the Medi-Cal cover the cost of whatever medical services they need. So this latest expansion has been increasing. That was approved the lawmakers that have expanded all of these benefits. Usually they have been trailer bills rushed through the legislature in a matter of days without going through the usual committee process, where the policies could be more thoughtfully considered. If lawmakers had taken the time to read the bill, this sentence might have jumped out at them. The federal Medicaid program prohibits payment to a state for medical assistance furnished to an alien who is not legally or lawfully admitted for permanent residence or otherwise permanently residing in the state under color of law. That means, that the California will not receive, and I'm sure this applies to other states, they will not receive federal matching funds to help pay for the expansion of these these Medi-Cal benefits. The cost of this new of the new entitlements have already been already been obtained through other funds and through loans that the state already cannot afford. So politicians can stand in front of cameras and declare that healthcare is a human right. Well, that's not exactly the case. Healthcare is a service provided by skilled and trained people. There can't be a right to anything that has to be provided by somebody else. What about the other people's rights? To stretch the state's funds while enrolling more people to receive benefits, California sharply limits the amount that healthcare providers will be paid for legitimately eligible Medi-Cal patients. And as a result, doctors sharply limit the number of Medi-Cal patients that they will even accept. Right now, Medi-Cal pays only 50% of what Medicare pays for, compared to 65% in 2000. In 2017, there were only 13 million Californians on Medi-Cal. Now it's 14 million, with an estimated over 700,000 more eligible to enroll as a result of the latest expansion. But is it 700,000 more as it was projected in early 2024, or is it or more? So the California is currently facing a large billion-dollar budget shortfall. What's your guess? What can you guess? They are going to be the legislature in California is going to be looking for ways to tax the California residents in order to meet this shortfall. So, in the one big beautiful bill, which we will talk about more in detail next week, it contained the right to curtail California's Medi-Cal scam, as they call it, and that scam is going around the rules to fund the treatment under Medi-Cal to folks who do not have any right to be here in the first place. So Californians should cheer, not jeer, those coverage losses. The new law will primarily disenroll, that is the one big beautiful bill. It will primarily disenroll folks who should have never been covered by the program in the first place. And it will make Medi-Cal work better for taxpayers and the truly needed and the truly eligible. The California lawmakers have greatly expanded Medi-Cal eligibility in recent years, and we will go more into these, repeat again, these expansions and go into more detail on how the One Big Beautiful Bill affected the current Medicare program and Medicare program. So with that, we'll look forward to hearing from you at James at 951-522-9877 or my email, ebjtax1 at gmail.com. All right, good luck, and we'll see you next week at the same time.
All right, yeah. Thank you so much for the information.
Right.
Guys, check them out each and every Wednesday, 10 a.m. on the West Coast, 1 p.m. on the East. Make sure you come back tonight for Cultural Excellence with yours truly, WB. Just hanging out, playing some lot of great music, guys. Turn down the TV, turn up the radio, and let's go. All right, let's do it.
Can I start by telling the truth?